My computer decided to take a shit, huh? Oh,
I think
okay, well,
it's
no, we're here, we're live. Oh my god, here we go. I record. Let's go. Oh my god. A little hot mic situation, ladies and gentlemen. You heard me curse because my computer decided to basically take a dump while we were going live. It's crazy because I have um oh boy. Well, hey, listen. Needless to say, we are officially live. Fuzzy Belvedere. Welcome everyone to the first episode of the week, and it's not starting off great because, well, you heard a bit of a conundrum that we had. That's why we're a little bit late. The internet, I don't know, man. It's just not working good today. Twitter, oh my god, Twitter's been a disaster all day. Works when it wants to work. It's finally back up. We'll see how long that lasts, but listen, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have an absolutely outstanding 75-ish kind of minutes. We got a couple of topics to get into, one of which is going to be a tweet from Jez Corden of Windows Central and at the Xbox 2 podcast, where he is one half of that podcast with Randall Thor 19. You know, Jez wrote an article regarding Xbox's gradual takeover of PlayStation and how that continues to this day with Forza Horizon 5, which will require players on PlayStation to have a Microsoft account. Now, this is a two-tiered conversation because people keep saying, Fuzzy Belvedere, that we go all the way back to Minecraft. That ultimately is the OG Trojan horse. But when you consider what Xbox is doing right now by putting their games on PlayStation, there is going to come a point. Actually, I think you asked this question in either you did it live or you did it through DM. I don't remember. What happens when 5 out of the 10 games on Sony's top 10 are Xbox games, not PlayStation first party, but Xbox first party games? It's going to be a real conversation. And I think we're going to get there at some point. But good afternoon, kind sir. How you feeling?
good afternoon. Feeling great. Yeah, the internet all around has just been on the outs for the most part. But hey, we're here live, and there's a lot of good gaming news coming up as far as Xbox is concerned. And yeah, I don't know. People are complaining about logins when they just told PC guys to get over it not too long ago for Spider-Man 2 and a few other games. So I don't know. I guess they have very, very short memories, but yeah, we're going to get into it today.
Well, again, listen, the login thing is not brand new for Xbox games on PlayStation, right? That's standard fare. Now, again, there are a lot of people in the gaming community, Fuzzy Belvedere, that were trying to equate what Xbox is doing with the sign-in to what happened with PSN, and it's a bit different. PSN wasn't available in 180 plus countries, and people that were in those countries couldn't buy Helldivers 2 if they wanted to the point where Steam actually had to get involved and stop selling the game because people were buying it and they needed this PSN sign-in account and they couldn't get PSN in their country. So eventually, Sony had to bend the knee and remove the PSN requirements because there were 184 plus countries that did not have PSN available. Makes perfect sense if you want to sell your game. This is a bit different. Now, I can understand why, it might be concerning, but Hargeet actually on Dave's show last night, where I was a guest, brought up a really great point where if you look at what PSN is around the world, it's not as, I mean, it's big, but it's not Windows big. Windows is everywhere. Everyone who uses Windows, who has a Windows account. So it's a much different situation. Now, personally, for me, I have a PSN account. I have a Nintendo account. I have an Xbox account. I even have a Steam account. I don't use it very often because I don't really play on PC, but occasionally, like something like when the G.I. Joe Wrath of Cobra demo was up, I played it on my PC for a couple hours because I didn't want to buy it, I figured, let me try out this side scroll. It's fantastic. Um, but again, Fuzzy, this is a two-tier conversation. So I want to open up with I guess the elephant, well, it's being called the blue elephant in the room. That's the PlayStation login situation. Now, obviously, even with the so-called bad news that certain PlayStation sites are running with, it's still number one in almost every country that's not America. In America, all three versions, there are three, are 3, 4, and 13. And the 13 is the $100 edition. That's the big one. I don't think that this is it's gonna slow down players. I think that it's a matter of putting in an email and going. Now, if you as a player feel like, oh no, I don't want to be a part of this, I'm not going to fight you on it. Listen, I get it. You don't want to feel that you have being forced into it, but is it possible that most gamers today, and again, I'm not being facetious, I'm just asking a question to the chat and asking a question to Fuzzy. Is it likely that most people who work on a PC, play on a PC, do their shopping on a PC, have a Windows account? So it's because Windows is so big, it's likely you already have the account. Now, is that the same thing for the other side when Sony was trying to make PSN mandatory, of course, for MAUs? That's the whole point of these things, folks. They want to be able to track the MAUs. Now, again, just reiterating, Sony's situation was way different because in those countries, PlayStation Network or PSN was not available. So if people bought the game, they literally couldn't play the game that they purchased because there was no PSN. PSN was a requirement that has been now backed away where it's no longer a requirement. That's not going to happen here. If you want to play Forza Horizon 5, you're going to need this Microsoft account to play the game. Now, again, if you don't like that, then don't buy the game. But this isn't going to be walked back. Let's get your thoughts on this, Fuzzy.
Yeah, I just found it weird that some of the same group that was complaining about the PC guys crying about the PSN login and told them basically just make the account, get over it, kind of thing. And now a lot of them are complaining about the Microsoft or the Xbox login for Forza Horizon 5, which I don't know. I think the big thing, you touched on it already, as far as how a majority of people, whether it's for your own home personal use, you have a Microsoft account, or you've had a Live account or a Hotmail account or an Outlook account at some point, or your office or your line of work has a Microsoft attachment, whether it's for Office or for Outlook or what have you. A majority of people out there have some form of an Office or a Microsoft account. I mean, Linux is not anywhere near as popular, and that's pretty much the main PC alternative. And then you have the Mac crowd, which even a lot of the Mac crowd, because as somebody that used to be a Mac fanboy or an Apple fanboy back in the day, Office outdoes numbers and whatever. I can't even remember the names of what the Apple equivalent was, but it was like night and day. So even a lot of Mac people have a Windows or a Microsoft account at some point for use. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be that big of a hurdle. I think a lot of news sites are making more of it than what it really is. The only caveat or complaint I have about the whole situation, and it's probably minuscule in comparison to the big picture, is that there isn't any cross progression. And I was always under the assumption that Steam had some of the cross progression, but apparently that doesn't have it as well. You will have access, I guess, to whatever liveries or tunes and stuff like that you may have created under your account. So when you log in under, PlayStation or Steam, you will have access to that, but you won't have any of your achievements or anything along those lines. Or your garage, the cars in your garage from Xbox won't unfortunately carry over if you're on PlayStation, which I kind of understand. They don't want to make it so it's like free and easy, trophies, I guess. But for me, I would be more willing to make an additional purchase or a double dip if everything carried over. So it's like I pick up where I left off on Xbox, and then whatever I do on PlayStation, anything I gain from that comes back with me when I go back on Xbox or even on my PC for that matter. So right now, the dual entitlement from Xbox with PC and console seems to be the best, bargain in town or the best deal overall. But for those that are, up in arms about the account, it's probably best to not purchase this at this point, because you're going to have to create a Microsoft account. And if you already have a Microsoft account, or if you were an Xbox console player back in the day and switched to PlayStation for the PS4, you can still use that same account. I hope you remember your login, but there are ways to recover the account. But I don't know how many people would remember all of that, or are willing to go through the hoops, which aren't many, but willing to go through the hoops to require or reconnect that account. But as someone that, when I switched from PlayStation to Xbox, I still have my PlayStation. Making that Microsoft account was no big deal. Like I said, I already had a Microsoft account because of work and because of PCs I've had in the past. So all of that was like an easy link type of deal. So the news sites seem to be picking a weird battle. I know some people had mentioned in the chat, as far as when it came to Helldivers 2, it was a little bit of a different scenario, only in the sense that the actual developer, Arrowhead, turned that feature off because it was breaking the game at launch for some people. Like, for example, a group of us on the Fun Speculation Network were, we purchased it on our PCs. We already had PSNs because a lot of us have had PlayStations in the past. We linked the account, and I think for like the first couple of hours, you couldn't actually get the match to start. So Arrowhead saw that even when you linked the account, that there was a problem, but somehow that was tying up their, I guess, either their servers or something was screwing up matchmaking to some extent with that. So they turned that feature off, allowing people to buy the game and then, play the game without having to do that, which, from a PC standpoint makes the most sense. I get the whole MAU deal that these companies want to have at least control over, but it would have been easy enough for PlayStation to look at their, the portal to Steam, because they have to have a portal to upload their games, and they have a whole bunch of schematics, or not schematics, but like metrics that they can draw from that. They would have been easy. It would have been easy enough for them to say, hey, for those that didn't create the PSN, we have XYZ amount of players on Steam, but PlayStation is still going to want that, all in house, as opposed to through a third party or through a portal and stuff. But no, I think it's one of those, nothing to see here, no big deal. Account login, you either do it or don't play the game. Chances are, I would nearly bet 100% of the people that are complaining about it already have a Microsoft account at some extent. I don't know why they would be afraid to link that account. I mean, unless even if you are doing nefarious things with that email address, or you want to keep work completely separate from your gaming, but probably still play solitaire, I don't know why you're complaining, but it is what it is.
I mean, again, it's one of those situations where both login issues that PSN had with Helldivers versus now what's happening with the sign-in requirement for Forza Horizon 5, two different scenarios, literally two different scenarios. But listen, again, it's MAUs, folks. That's what that's what these companies are after. That's ultimately what they want. They want to see how many people are playing the game, how often they're playing the game, and what money they're spending. Again, if you feel like you're being forced into it, don't buy the game, because they're not going to walk this back. That I can assure you. But second half, or the flip side of this coin, Fuzzy Belvedere, is something that you specifically made mention in the DM, and I do want to get your thoughts on this, because it is rather thought provoking, if you will, specifically in 2025 for Xbox, because we know that Indiana Jones is going. We know that Forza Horizon is going. It should, it'll be there in a couple of weeks, right? Detective Seeds, who we've talked about on this program before, literally just said on Twitter, I don't know, maybe about 30 minutes ago, that Starfield is 2025. Where does he get his information? Folks, the guy's connected. I don't know what to tell you. Now, I've been saying Starfield 2025 forever, and it kind of goes in line with what we talked about on Friday, right? Bethesda said that 2025 was going to be a big year for updates. And I, in my mind, thought, well, yeah, of course, you're going to get the Starborn DLC, which is the rumor, right? Remember that leak?
Yeah.
I'm sure they're going to add some new weapons. They may add a new vehicle or 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're always consistently adding things. But I thought on the back end of that conversation, and we didn't really make mention of it, but we can talk about it now because it literally just came, just popped out onto the socials, that PlayStation 5 is also going to be getting Starfield. Now, listen, folks, I get it. There are some people in this community that continue to bang the drum of, this is L's for Xbox. This is L for Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond and Matt Booty. Folks, I don't understand how many times we actually have to have this human conversation. Just look at the industry. Look, I'm the oldest dude here, probably in the chat and on the panel, right? Maybe there's somebody a pinch older than me, but I'm an old school cat. And I was, conditioned. I hate using that word, but we were all conditioned, from our younger selves about buying games that played on a specific system, and it stayed on that system. And when that system moved into the next generation, like I've said this before, you sold it to GameStop or to EB Games or to Game, wherever, to get the new console. That's kind of what we did. And you played said game on said console. It wasn't until the Sega went, multi-plat, where you started seeing Sonic everywhere, right? Sonic was on Nintendo, Sonic was on Xbox, Sonic was on PlayStation. I don't understand personally how we can continue to get back around to this thing that, that anyone is going to be surprised on anything showing up on PlayStation or Nintendo. I mean, Phil said in his last interview, for crying out loud, that during the June events, during their, when they're showing off trailers, at the end of the trailer, it's going to have the logos for every console this thing is coming for. I mean, we're there, folks. Rip the Band-Aid off. I mean, do we all like it? No. Am I going to stop using Game Pass because someone else played the game? I'm not doing that, folks. I live life on a budget, and Game Pass, speaks my language. Xbox first party, Xbox Game Studios, the controller, Xbox Live, my friends list, my achievement. That's what I'm here for. And again, like I said, you either move with the time or you get left behind, and that's just what it is. But I do, and again, apologies for the long-windedness, but I do want to come back around to what you said, Fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we are watching something unfold here that I don't think 2 years ago we could have ever gathered, right? There is going to come a point, because Sony, listen, PlayStation isn't going anywhere. They are a powerful billion-dollar brand. That's what they do, right? They're not going anywhere, folks. But to suggest that there isn't problems with Sony, especially in their direction, their roadmap, where do they go from here, leadership, these are all very, very big questions. They have a couple of games coming out. Matter of fact, who didn't get excited for the Death Stranding 2 trailer? That looks freaking amazing. And again, is it weird? Well, it's Kojima. Of course it's going to be weird. But it looked dope as H, right? I mean, just that Decima engine, oh my God, wow. It just continues to evolve to be something super special. Awesome. But Fuzzy, you specifically called out 5 of 10. And what he meant when we were talking in our DMs is we are on the cusp, ladies and gentlemen, of Sony not in no way, shape, or form are they able to keep up with what Xbox is doing for first party. And why Xbox has that advantage right now, and you're going to see an onslaught of games get onto PlayStation, is because not only will they be getting new games. Now, I don't know so much about the day and date thing, but they're getting games that are 5 and 4 and 3 years old, and there's a lot of them that could be sent over there. Hellblade 2 is another one. We've heard this numerous times. Ecstasies, as a matter of fact, talked about it, that should be announced soon. When? I don't know. But now we're hearing Starfield, Hellblade, Indiana Jones, Forza Horizon 5. There's going to come a point, Fuzzy, where at least 5 of the top 10 games being played and purchased on PlayStation are not going to be Sony's games. That is bonkers. I want to get your thoughts on this.
I think the big thing now that Xbox or Microsoft has a lot of these games that are charting in their top 20 most played. As they start to filter more games over there, that's going to kind of, corner PlayStation to some extent, or at least crowd them out of their own platform as far as getting the most money out of their users. Now, what I mean by that is when Sony puts let's say a games as a service game, something like Destiny, for example, if that starts charting, if it gets back in the top 20, they're getting 100% of that funding from that. So every dollar that is spent from a PlayStation player, they keep all of that. When something like Call of Duty is on there, they're only getting 30% of that dollar. So if Xbox is going to keep on putting more and more of their titles on PlayStation, and let's say a lot of them start charting in the top 10, at this point, if Microsoft gets 5 in the top 10, and we all know that a lot of the other ones will be like Fortnite, Apex Legends, there's a couple of other ones I can't think of right now, like Roblox, for example. Those not being owned by Microsoft, or at least at this point in time, they're getting 30%. Sony would get 30% on that, but then that doesn't leave much room for their own first party stuff to get into that window, except for maybe a month when a new, Ghost of Yotai comes out. It'll probably chart that month, but beyond that, most of the other dollars that they'll be getting will be just a 30% cut from third party stuff that's on their platform. And the whole initiative, as far as them doing the games as a service, or at least what Jim Ryan was looking to do, was to have that stable income. And the reason why they produced as many is because not every games as a service succeeds. So if you produce, let's say, 8 or 9, like the ones that they canceled, and at least one of them hits, then you have that one that's probably going to be in your top 10 that you're getting 100% of the funds. When you cancel those 9, you kind of chop your nose off type of deal. And if Destiny 2 is already winding down to end of life kind of deal, and it's not really charting in the top 20, they're not really benefiting financially as much as they could if it was one of their own first party in there. I mean, yeah, let's all agree to whether disagree or whatnot. 30% is a nice chunk if it's, something like Call of Duty or Fortnite where they're getting money off the skins. But in comparison to Microsoft getting that 70%, even if their costs out of that 70% was half of that, they're still pocketing at least 5% more than what Sony is doing, plus whatever they're getting on their own platform. And that's the key thing. PlayStation's going to have to figure out a way to either bully their way back into the top 10 as far as something that stays there that they own, whether that winds up being Marathon, for example, hopefully something to that effect, or even Fair Game. That's the only way that they're really going to kind of get enough revenue constantly coming in to make it easier so they don't have to rely on remasters to be able to produce the sequels or produce new IP. Like, not that we're going to take everything that Yoshi said at face. Well, we can take it at face value for the most part, but with the statement that he said as far as they want you to buy the remaster so you get your sequels or get the new titles. Well, if they're only collecting that 30% off of other people's stuff, it's going to take longer, and it's going to mean that you're going to have to buy those remasters at twice the rate that you were buying a regular game, because remasters don't cost as much, because a lot of the assets are at least started, or it can be worked off of, so you're not starting from scratch. You may update the engine or update a lot of the visuals, but at least there's a foundation to start on, whether it's the storyboard and all of that. It saves the time on production, so it doesn't cost as much as a new game. But that means, to get it so they can have that extra money so they can make the sequel a lot easier, buy that remaster. But even better, find a way to get back into Destiny 2. Like, if PlayStation guys were still playing Destiny 2, much like, everybody else is playing COD or Fortnite or something like that, then it would probably be a lot easier. One, for Bungie, and two, for Sony, as far as them having that, recurring revenue from that game that's in that top 10 that, people are spending tens, if not hundreds of dollars on a monthly basis on. So that's where, Microsoft crowding them out makes it a lot less. I wouldn't say a lot less. It makes it a lot harder for Sony to, gain traction in that regard. And that's all it is to it. It's like, last thing you want is your competitors' stuff outdoing your own stuff to the point where you're only getting a small cut. Yeah, you're getting a cut, but they're getting fatter and happier off of you than what you are able to do on your own stuff. And that's where I see the problem for Sony in the long term.
And it's very interesting. Again, understand, ladies and gentlemen, we're not suggesting that if Sony puts out a game, it's not going to track. I mean, come on, that's even suggested. I see some things in the chat that's not what we're saying at all. And I'm sure we'll get clipped at one way or another. We're not suggesting they don't know how to make good games. The record speaks for itself. But that does not take away from the fact that right now they find themselves in a bit of a pickle because they don't have the games. And you know what's funny? You mentioned Shuhei Yoshida, which, again, diamond of the industry, right? Make no mistake, that guy is aces. He's out there doing some big talking. And I really think that people missed the mark of what he was saying regarding the remasters and the remakes. This is not the same Sony from the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4 days. They took a bunch of risks, and instead of sticking to what they knew, they tried to do something different because of trends, and it didn't work. And that, repositioning of what they were going to do with their brand cost them millions upon millions of dollars, which is why you see this massive delay. And it's funny, we keep hearing about this God of War remake, and I hope it's the trilogy, and that's the rumor, because I'm going to buy that day one. That game is over 20 years old. The trilogy is over 20 years old. If they do it and it looks like God of War 2018, please just take my money. It's not even going to be a question. My God, could you imagine if it's just God of War 2018 remade or remastered? I'm going to throw a fit. I'm not going to lie. And it's kind of the trend, right? I hope that's not the case. But at the end of the day, we're going to see what is going to happen. I find it so incredibly odd that games from Xbox are still going to PlayStation. Like you heard the Gears of War, collection, day and date, which makes sense. And listen, the game's old. They're going to put the trilogy. They remade it. It's going to go everywhere. It's going to make a lot of money. People who've never played Gears on PlayStation are probably going to buy this game. Why? Because it's an over-the-shoulder, story-driven, adult-themed game, right? It's exactly what they like on PlayStation. Again, multiplayer aside, we don't know what's going to happen. Jez Cord said to kind of hold out on that, but we'll see. We will definitely see. But great way to open up the show. Again, two-tiered topic. We got one to get into here, and it involves Destin Leghari, former IGN Destin Leghari. He did a video that I'm not going to say got him in hot water with the community. He asked a question, and I watched the video twice. Some of what he's saying, I understand. Some of it, I was a bit taken aback. We'll get into that in a hot second. Let me just catch up with the super chats and the gifted memberships. And we have quite a few here. First of all, Do you, K, now, the broke boy insider? I got it right. Look at that. After a while, I trained myself. Will, thank you so much. He has gifted, ladies and gentlemen, the one Double Barrel Gaming membership. We super appreciate the generosity as always. Shine Films in the chat, who's been a channel member for a whopping 18 months. Shine Films goes on to say, Mark Cerny just said, the FSR 4 is the evolution of the Pisser or the PSSR for the Pro and is coming next year. More evidence. I just saw someone tweet about that. Sony is a ways off from the PS6. Yeah, you know what's interesting? I want to get some more information on this. I got a couple of people I need to talk to that understand like tech in a big way. I'm wondering, and this is the conversation I think we're going to have on Wednesday's show. I think what this ultimately does is kind of position the PlayStation 6 for that rumored 2028 release. And I don't know if this is look, we all said it, and whether we're right or we're not, I don't know if the mid-gen refresh kind of pushed Sony's PlayStation 6, because there will be a 6, out a bit further. Now, what were they targeting? I don't know, because all I've heard was 2028. But were they targeting 2027? And somehow now this FSR 4 being upgraded, or the evolution of PSSR, that kind of says that they're still working on the Pro. I mean, I'm not suggesting that they're not working on the 6, but it kind of does seem like that it could be a 2028 a 2028 release. And that's we're only in 2025, folks. I'm no mathematician, but that's a long ways away. Now, there's rumors, and it has been for quite a while, that 2026 was the hardware. It's starting to appear, because there are no dev kits available, that might be 2027. And maybe the kind of no rush to get it out from Xbox is because of this. We will certainly see in the next couple of days. We're going to have more information pop out, but Eris_EMS drops 10 Double Barrel Gaming memberships, as he has done numerous times. Eris, that is crazy generous of you, as you always are. We truly appreciate the generosity, and of course, you being here to check out the show. So, Fuzzy, let's get to this Destin Leghari video. Now, I'm not going to play it. I listen. I've talked about Destin. I'm still supporting Destin, even though he got himself in a bit of a pickle with the community with the whole South of Midnight situation. Listen, things blow over. He had an opinion. I didn't like his opinion, but listen, that's his opinion. It is what it is. He's currently sitting at 125 subscribers, 125,000 subscribers on YouTube. So congratulations to him. That's a massive number. He put out a video, and it's an opinion video. And again, folks, it's his opinion. And he says Xbox buying Activision was pointless. Okay. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. Again, let's just start off with Destin Leghari is not a monster because he didn't like how it's being handled. Let's just get that right out, because I'm sure there's going to be somebody like, oh my God, Boom's attacking him. I am not. I disagree with him 1,000%. Now, he, in the video, which of course, like I said, I've watched twice, he specifically brings up the backwards compatibility situation. And in this aspect of the video, he is 100% right. We've all been waiting for the singularities. We're all waiting for the HDR boost and the frame boost for something like Prototype 1 and 2, right? This is what we're waiting for. We're waiting for the big announcement, Fuzzy Belvedere, of when they're going to dump the entire Call of Duty collection in there with all the bells and whistles. And again, I'm not a PC guy. I'm not a developer. I would imagine that having to do each one of these games is a process. I don't think it's copy and paste. At least, please, someone in the chat, if you're a developer, let me know that that's not true. It's fine. I don't think they could right click and just magically make something like prototype work on the Series X, and it's running with HDR boost, and it's got frames, and it's got all the bells and whistles. I mean, folks, when backwards compatibility was a thing, they had an entire dev team that was doing it. There was a team that did this. Now, if you remember last year's Business Direct, where you had Phil Spencer, you had Sarabon, you had Matt Booty. Sarabon specifically said that they were making sure that games will be forward and backwards compatible, which means that this team that was a thing. Remember, it got shut down. They weren't doing it anymore. They had to invoke a new team with this new direction. So it's obviously a lot of work. But more specifically, Jez Corden actually responded to him, and he says something that's very interesting, and it makes a lot of sense. And I do want to get the thoughts of you, Fuzzy Belvedere, but I want to get the chat involved in this. And I'm reading from my phone, folks. You know, I freaking hate that, but that's because Twitter's acting funny, and I have it on my phone. I saved the page, so bear with me. Apologies. Jez Corden goes on to say, I think this argument hinges on very fully underestimating how long integrations on this scale actually take. With all of the technical debt involved and the ongoing manpower the games themselves actually need, to suggest that they can just turn around WoW and on console in 17 months is crazy. And why he mentions WoW is because that was part of the rant. Destin Leghari wants to know how come WoW has not been added to Xbox Game Pass. How come WoW isn't part of this service? And well, I mean, it's been 17 months, right, or 18 months now. This was a big integration. This was Activision, Blizzard, and King. That's a lot of work. Again, Destin, not a monster. I do think it was a bit narrow-sighted. Suggesting how come everything isn't already done, considering the size of this merger. But I understand his frustration with the older games, that more specifically the Activision library that we've all been expecting to drop in. And they've kind of been a little bit slow, we have to admit, about doling out the games. You know, you've had Diablo 4, you got the new Tony Hawk, you had Tony Hawk 1 and 2, you had Spyro, you had Crash. You know, there's been a few, but I think what we're all waiting for is the onslaught of games, even if they're in blocks of, 5 or 6 games per drop, because that's the speed that they could, do the backwards compatibility for. Like, for instance, Prototype 2, Singularity. We want to play these games. They need to make them backwards compatible. And again, this is the other thing. When I heard some comparisons to Sony, the way they do theirs, folks, this is night and day difference. Sony takes a game from their archives and they drop it into PlayStation Plus, and it's literally the same game you played 27 years ago. Jumping Flash looks like Jumping Flash from the PlayStation 1 days. That's just the way it is. Twisted Metal 2, an amazing game, looks like Twisted Metal 2 from the PlayStation 1 days. And that's because they don't do anything to it. Xbox is different, and they do all of the bells and whistles that you would expect. Again, I mentioned this before. Put in Fusion Frenzy if you have the disc, or download it. It looks like a new game. Now, is it one-to-one, like a brand new game? No, but it looks phenomenal for a game that's going to be 25 years old next year. So I understand some of Destin's frustration, but I do think that from a business perspective, we know why they did this. And this kind of a merger is a shot in the arm initially with the Call of Duty going into Game Pass and how much money they made, how many new subscribers, how much money the thing made on PlayStation. That's the quick shot in the arm. But this is one of those long-term 5 and 7 year things that you may not see the worth of it now. But I think if you look down the road, you can see why they did this. Let's get your thoughts, man.
Yeah. All right. So I'll start with the basic reason why there was the merger. I know he asked why, but he wasn't asking this specific why. But the comes down to Xbox and Microsoft's bottom line. The opportunity to make more in the gaming space with having that asset was the whole reason why they acquired them. Now, that's basically a given. That should be an unspoken, common sense thing. But when it comes to the time it's taken them to add some of their back catalog into Game Pass, it has taken a lot longer than anticipated. Some of that we can thank for the long drawn out battle to actually acquire them with some of the government agencies, going back and forth as far as some of the things that they would have to do or some of the hoops they would have to jump through to make the deal go through. So that wound up taking a good bit longer than even Microsoft anticipated. And that kind of put them behind, the eight ball to some extent. Like you said, with the team that was doing the back compat stuff being disbanded, being focusing more so on the next piece of hardware as far as forward compatibility, making sure that stuff that they've already worked on will be able to work on the upcoming hardware as well as what we're playing today, and even Xbox One console generation stuff, being able to work on Xbox Prime or whatever they wind up calling the next one. There's a lot of moving parts. I've see some or a few in the chat I may mention as far as the AI aspect that will come into play, possibly helping them speed some of this process up. But the key thing is with AI, as you know, whenever you make an AI request, sometimes it's freaking awesome. Other times it's complete nonsense. So they're more than likely having to double check and recheck to make sure that the actual game that was supposedly upresed or uplifted by AI actually works on the hardware and doesn't have weird artifacting or other issues going awry in that process. And the other thing, there's some other things that Microsoft is working on. Now, there are plenty of great programmers out there that have kind of beat them to the punch as far as having 360 emulation on PC. But there is an official version of that is working in the background. I don't know if it's something that's going to be targeted towards the handheld or just the overall next generation of boxes, but they are looking at different ways of emulating stuff, whether that's through AI or that's through just basically the core setup of the chipset and being able to take the newest chipset and dummy it down to what it was, for that old hardware. It's a little bit easier for Xbox considering they didn't do the cell processor thing like PlayStation did for the PS3 generation, but there is still a lot of, busy, I wouldn't say busy work, but a lot of, things that have to be tweaked and tuned and so forth to be able to have that work, flawlessly like the consumer would expect. So there are programmers out there that already have emulators for that stuff. Microsoft is working hard at doing the same, but I don't know. For me, my overall look at the Activision deal, it can be a little frustrating. Like for me, the more frustrating part is that not everything, and this also includes for Bethesda, not everything that is playable on Xbox has that same rate of cross progression, cross save, which I know that's an even bigger hill for them to climb if that wasn't an intended process within that game to begin with. But having it where some of the older titles that now, since they're under Xbox and Xbox, their whole creed moving forward is to be dual entitlement on both console and PC, so you can play your games anywhere you choose to, being able to stream those same games, which we see now, the owned games that you can stream are being added, at a relatively slow pace. I'm not sure what exactly is involved, and I don't think any of us really know. But a lot of that process, I'm pretty sure, takes a good bit of time to make sure it doesn't break things or doesn't have it where you lose access to games that you own digitally for a number of reasons. Like there's a recent update that they did that, at least for the people in the like the prototype program or the insider program, where it was causing some problems with the updates and stuff like that. with that testing, they got to make sure this stuff works fully fleshed out when it comes to, doing the full release as far as for the, hardware that's not inside the insider program and such. So I wish they were working a little bit faster, but I think the only thing that will, encourage them to work a little faster is us voting with our wallets to some extent. But I don't have any instructions on how you can encourage them to work faster on that stuff. Like, I guess the big thing is we're getting some of the new titles already in the service from Activision, which is great. That should be the case without a doubt. Some of their older titles, I guess we can hound them on social media, or withhold funds for new game purchases and things like that. But then that probably tells them a different message than the message we would be probably trying to send. Like, if you withhold money on new purchases, then they'll be like, well, maybe they didn't like this game, so maybe we should close this studio. And we don't want them going that route. But yeah, I don't have a game plan of how we can encourage them other than hounding them on social media, which only has but so much reach, I guess you could say. I mean, we are the enthusiasts. We're listening to podcasts. We're posting on social media. We're talking to our friends and family about it. The casuals aren't really that active or participate in that. So they're the ones that would probably have more of an influence if they withheld purchasing certain things or withheld, using that platform if they didn't get, their back catalog already taken care of and things like that. But once again, that's a hard, fight to bring to Xbox in that regard. But yeah, I totally understand what Activision's acquisition was. I totally understand that it takes time for these things to go into the catalog because of programming and so forth. And yeah, they may be the richest company, and sure, they should be able to hire all of the best programmers out there to be able to get this product done. But then again, if that's the case, then expect that we're going to have to pay on the back end with an increase to Game Pass or an increase to other costs elsewhere type of thing. So I don't know. I guess we can either be patient or we could move on from Xbox. I don't know. Me, I'm going to be on the be patient side, and on occasion when it bothers me enough where it'd be nice to have an older Call of Duty that I owned on the previous hardware to work on my current hardware. That's all I can say. It's kind of a tough spot, but yeah, it sucks, but it's kind of expected given how things are, especially if the focus is on new studios, new games, new IPs, and all of that coming into Game Pass, and then as well as third party and stuff like that. But who knows? Maybe they surprise us by the end of the year with all of the Call of Duties coming to Game Pass, which to me, that would make the most sense. That would be whenever they're looking to make a big push for either the next hardware or the next Game Pass milestone where they're pushing to hit 50 million subscribers. Maybe that's the way they do it. I honestly don't know.
Well, I mean, listen, whichever way they decide to go, I think that we are as gamers are going to keep winning, right? Whether it be games into Xbox Game Pass, and I'm talking about new releases, to older backwards compatible releases that are going to be dumped in at some point or another. Now, they are working on new technology that's going to use AI. Now, is that the technology that's going to help move this, push the needle? I don't think so, because that technology seems years out. So I think they're probably doing it the old-fashioned way, and that's per game. Again, it's a lot of work because it's a monster-sized library. Now, granted, I'm not going to sit here and disagree with Destin about being disappointed. Of course, we want to be able to play something like Prototype. Like if you gave Prototype the HDR and frame boost and all the bells and whistles that these games that are backwards compatible are known for, it's going to look and probably feel like a new game. I would like to believe that if it did get a lot of play from people in the community, that they would either remake it because that game is freaking old, or it'd be like a cause and effect situation where people are talking about it and they're going to make a sequel, which would be really dope. Is that going to happen? I'd like to believe so. Singularity is another one. And you've heard me mention about this game. It is so good. It is. I can guarantee you that if you polled everybody in the chat, most people never played the game. It was during the Xbox 360. It was on PS3, 360. It was freaking phenomenal. I think Ravensoft did it, if I'm not mistaken. Well, they own them. This game deserves to be played by other people, and even more so if it wound up coming out and it attracted the player base, deserves a sequel for sure. Anyone that's played it knows exactly what I'm talking about. The game is just phenomenal. But there are a lot of other games that people are waiting for. Now, the WoW thing, and somebody in the chat actually made mention of it. Why would they give away the $15 sub that people are paying for? I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it could bring a lot of people to Xbox Game Pass if they offered it. Like for instance, if you are a PC guy or gal and they added WoW to PlayStation to Xbox Game Pass for PC, that would be ridiculous because you're already paying your $15 a month, but then you would take that $15 and trade it in for new games day and date, and I'm getting WoW too. Like that would be a way to get people into the service. Now, is that padding the numbers? I guess some people would argue, yeah, it is. But if you move those subscribers from WoW over to Game Pass, people would be like, wait a second, I'm getting WoW and I'm getting all of this for the same price. Are we insane? Now, again, that sounds crazy, but I don't know if they would do that. I don't know. And any thoughts to the why isn't WoW, on PC?
That's a tough one because of the way WoW is structured. It's not like Diablo. It's not like, I mean, it's more like Final Fantasy 14 without the free to play aspect, which I haven't played WoW in God knows how long. So the best I could think is if you did kind of like the way Final Fantasy 14 has, where up to a certain point you can play it free, have that portion of it in Game Pass. But then again, if you're able to play it free, then you don't really need Game Pass for it.
Uh-huh.
But I guess the only other thing would be possibly offer it as a perk to Game Pass Ultimate subscribers once a year, like you get a month free or something along those lines. Like I think that would be the compromise that they can make because of that being a subscription model game. Or make it where if you have Game Pass Ultimate, you save $3 a month or $5 a month or whatever on your monthly subscription. I think something along those lines, which I'm not sure if that's the case, if you would be able to, if you are an Ultimate subscriber, if you get any discount on the subscription. But to me, that would probably make the most sense, because then those that were only subscribed to WoW might be more willing to dip their toes into, Game Pass for that subscription discount, or at least try it and see what it's about. Although I'm pretty certain at least half of those that have played WoW have either played on Game Pass or used Game Pass at some point. So I guess the best way is to incentivize it that way. That's about the only thing I can think of. A subscription model game is always going to be problematic for something like Game Pass. Like that's why at one point I was thinking maybe Grand Theft Auto 6 goes that route, and it's like, oh, you can play it for free, but you'll be like homeless and not have any weapons, and you'll have to work your way, do side jobs or delivery jobs or something like that to be able to get your first weapon or whatever the case is, kind of deal. But yeah, a subscription game, give us a discount or give us a perk once a year for a free month. I think that's probably the best compromise.
I mean, it makes sense. Look, at the end of the day, it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with this. I say, I'm leaning on the patience. Have patience, folks, because again, it's a big undertaking. I do agree 100% with Jez Corden, especially when he gets into the WoW, and of course, what Fuzzy just had to say makes perfect sense. Why this isn't just a copy and paste or right click and paste situation. It's really not that easy, folks. And I don't think I'm a rocket scientist for suggesting that. But at the end of the day, we have one additional topic to get into. Now, this one's very interesting. This one is thought provoking. And, speaking to a couple of people who in the chat, and Fuzzy, this is for you, think that Xbox has actually given up on hardware, because this keeps coming up, and they keep telling us they're not. They keep showing us that the plans for next generation is hardware, even though it's going to be different hardware. But I'm talking about current gen hardware. Now I don't know how many Series X, more specifically Series S consoles, that are in warehouses, right? Because all we do know for a fact is the last couple of quarters, they keep going in the other direction of where they want to be when it comes to console sales.
Mhm.
So why is this a conversation? Well, there's a rumor floating around that GTA is in September. This is what people are hearing. Somewhere around the 20th, something 20, I heard someone even say the 22nd. And that's awfully specific. But they're saying we can all, I think, agree, Fuzzy, that game is coming out this year. I would have bet the farm, to be honest with you, that it was going to be delayed because it's Rockstar. They want to get it right. But this game hasn't been in development for over a decade, so they gotta be close. So where we're going with this, folks, and I want you to walk with me here. There was an article that came the way of Jez Gordon of Windows Central regarding, again, my Twitter's down again. Jesus Christmas. This is just awful. Okay, well, listen, I'm going to have to shoot from the hip here because I have all my notes on Twitter in DMs, and I thankfully, I do have the original write-up in front of me. So where we're going with this, ladies and gentlemen, is thanks to, and according to this story, Meta Researches, which I guess they're a research facility, and the name of the person that's making this quote is Rise Elliott. They say this, folks: the arrival of GTA 6 could be key to revitalizing Series X and S sales, especially with the Xbox Series S being the more affordable option, and obviously that's where it ends. Now, this write up I got from Ecstasies. Again, I've talked about him many times. He specifically says Series S for less than $200 as the best way to play GTA ? This could attract a lot of players in the midst of a current economic crisis, which is what we're in right now. And the marketing team should use this tool. So this now brings up a couple of really big questions. Is it worth Microsoft to go out and get this marketing? Because again, we have all just assumed that it's going to be PlayStation that gets this marketing, right? They're the most popular brand. They're the most popular console. They've sold 75 million of them compared to half of that for Xbox. But I'm just wondering if Xbox Series X and S consoles aren't selling, Fuzzy. They're sitting somewhere, right? They got to be somewhere, right? Now, I don't know if they're mass producing them like they once were, probably not, but they do have to have a significant amount of them available. Here's the question: if you're Xbox and you're looking at the playing field, right? Okay, they want to sell consoles, but it's not the most important thing. They want to put software everywhere. If they're doing it, they'd be making money hand over fist. It's going to be a cash cow because they have so many games and so many games in development that are now going to be going to PlayStation 5 and Pro, as well as the Switch 2. This kind of opens the door for a heavily discounted, potentially discounted Series S. And if they had marketing, Fuzzy Belvedere, and again, this is a lot of hypotheticals, but I do want to get the chat involved in this. If they somehow went out and already acquired the marketing, because again, we don't know who has it. Everyone just assumes it's PlayStation. And you know something? I'm on that train as well, because I kind of feel it's just PlayStation. It's just what they do. And it's a big one. But what if this is some sort of a co-marketing thing? Like GTA 6 doesn't need PlayStation. PlayStation needs GTA 6. Xbox needs GTA 6. So why would you lock your marketing down to one brand? You wouldn't. If I'm Take Two, you probably have some sort of a co-marketing thing. We've seen that done before. It happened with Call of Duty, right?
Mhm.
There was something in the contract where Xbox got it back, right? They were able to, they own it, so they could market it. But also, PlayStation didn't lose what they already had locked in the contract, and that didn't expire until midnight of the end of the year. Now
Mhm.
that's different. Fuzzy, this is very interesting. What if a $300 Series S is made available for the normies coming over, the casuals coming over from PS4, PS4 Pro, Xbox One X and S?
Mhm.
GTA 6 is next gen only. That's confirmed.
Yeah.
That's why Rise Elliott from Meta said that there's an opportunity here. And again, this is it's a lot of hypotheticals here, but I'm not a marketing manager, and this screams success because if you have consoles that didn't sell, and you have an opportunity with either get the marketing or do a co-marketing deal, you make these consoles, these Series S consoles, $300, and you include GTA. Holy matrimony! You're going to sell consoles. And here's the thing, folks. Because we are, and again, they even admit it, we are in a bit of a financial crisis in the world right now. Things are super expensive. What's going to be more attractive? The Series S or the PlayStation 5 Pro or the Series X or even the PlayStation? If you bottom out at $300 for this thing, you are going to sell the consoles that you have, and it's that last hurrah they're talking about. And just to add some context, I'm not looking at the chat because I'm on another screen, but I'm sure there's somebody in here and say, wait a second, boom. Just a second there, knucklehead. This Series S isn't going to be able to run GTA 6. Are you kidding me? Well, according to the head president of Take Two, it is. And again, folks, FYI, be prepared. It's going to be 30 frames. It's not going to be 60 frames. It's
Yeah.
just too big for the consoles, which is why they're doing consoles for first, PC second. It is not going to run at 60 frames on the Pro or the X. It is going to run at probably 2180 something P if you're lucky, with some bonuses on the back end for the Pro. It's not running at 60. I could be wrong. And could I be? Sure. Do I think I am? No. Let's get your thoughts on this potential of a resurgence of the Xbox Series X and S because of no last gen GTA 6. Do you think it's possible, Fuzzy?
I think it's possible. Likely is the hard part, because the amount that I can imagine locking down the advertising or marketing for GTA 6, I have a feeling it's going to be like a 10-figure check
It's going
kind
to
of
be
deal, which
massive, too.
Microsoft has the money to do it. But I don't know. I think, like, if I'll put it this way: if there's more than 10 million Series S's sitting collecting dust at this point, like especially if they're the 512 hard drive, and let's say GTA 6 is like somewhere if it's less than 200 gigs that it
You'd be
takes up on a hard
surprised.
drive.
Yeah.
Um, if they got at least 10 million of those that are sitting that are the 512, I would say it's probably worth the write-off to go ahead and give them $1 billion or whatever they want as far as marketing, or near $1 billion for marketing, and move those that last 10 million of the old Series S and as many of the new Series X and S as you can by having them bundled without doing a price break. Do it at 300. Have GTA, which if it's 100, then that'll really seem like a deal. But if it's 50 or not 50, if it's 70, like I'm hoping it is for the base game, it's still a heck of a deal. You have GTA 6 on the box. I think you will at least have a better chance of convincing the Xbox One generation of gamers to upgrade on the spot kind of deal, much like some of them did when it came to NCAA. As far as the PS4
Great
crowd,
point, dude. Great point.
as far as the PS4 crowd, you might be able to steal a few of those. Hopefully, you can steal a few more of those, especially if you lock it down where you can put the advertising or marketing on your boxes, and they can't type of deal, and they can't do any type of bundling. Then you might be able to grab a few of the PS4 crowd that, if they do play online, it's limited as far as with random people. Now, depending on their close friends, if they all jump ship, especially considering, hey, $300 gets us GTA 6 and a new console, that might be a worthwhile maneuver. But it's tough to say. Like, I just feel the way Microsoft moves today, they're going to look at that $1 billion that Rockstar would request and say, no thanks.
Yeah.
and Sony would be quick to say, $1 billion? Yeah. Do we need to get a loan? Yeah. We're good for it. Let's write the check right now, kind of thing. And they'll just obliterate all of the advertising, as far as, like, people will definitely think it's only available on PlayStation at that point, the way they will market it. But if Phil has the wherewithal, I would say at some point, sometimes maybe throwing, as crazy as this sounds, throwing away $1 billion in marketing might be worth at least moving the hardware for this generation. So at least you might be able to have a bigger base to convince to jump to the next gen console in 26 or sometime late next year. As many of those Series S customers, some of them might be willing to, trade in that Series S to get the whatever the next Xbox is, kind of thing. So there's that. But Phil doesn't seem to be big on doing marketing deals on big titles like that, unless they own them, which last I checked, Take-Two is still a publicly traded company that's on their own kind of deal. Not acquired as of yet. So, if there was an acquisition in play or something like that on the table, a totally different story. But I don't see Phil convincing Satya or Amy Hood to, write $1 billion check to Zelnick and, grab that marketing. But it would be awesome to see. And I think at that point, knowing that it's, let's say the latest trailer shows up at the Xbox showcase, I think that would change a lot of the, I wouldn't say a lot of the gaming landscape, but it would definitely change a lot of the talking points. Like, I think the PlayStation crowd would be confused about what to talk about. Like, why would, if anything, they would complain, like, why would Take-Two sign up with Xbox? That's silly. Like a lot of people did when they did ReFantazio, Metaphor ReFantazio. I think there was a handful of people that were like, why did they get the marketing? It's because, Atlas and Sega trust them, and they did well. And it, even though they had the marketing, it still sold well across the board. So maybe Take-Two takes that same risk and partners up with them. We'll see.
Now, bear with me with this one, because there's one additional point I want to add in regards to context for this particular topic. Chad, I'm going to need your assistance, unless Fuzzy knows. Was there a rumor floating around that there would be a new GTA trailer? Has that been floating around? And if it has, because I could have sworn I read April. Then again,
Yeah.
If that's what I read, then that's what I read. But I couldn't find it in the stuff I send myself. And now Twitter's being a real D, so I can't even look into my DM, which is really annoying. But that's what happens when you depend on Twitter. I send my stuff everything so I don't forget. And well, there it is. It's trapped behind a spool that just keeps turning. Fine.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting point. There is supposed to be an Xbox partner event in March. There's always a partner event that happens in March. They have usually the Dev Direct, they have the indie thing, and then they have this. This is the partners. That has not happened. There's been no announcement on it. I'm kind of wondering if that could be when the trailer drops. And if it does drop, I mean, again, folks, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm simply saying there's a hypothetical chance that it could.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, folks. I think PlayStation marketing almost guaranteed. Like I'm like, yeah, it's going to PlayStation because it's PlayStation. And why they can do that is because they don't have to pay for the marketing rights of Call of Duty, which is on your screen. That's money that
Yeah.
they have to spend. Now, here's the thing. I did, and again, I could be off on the number, but Microsoft has billions of dollars of investment dollars that they have to spend per year, otherwise they lose money. And
Mhm.
some of those billions could it be in fact something that they invest into Grand Theft Auto. So, and again, folks, walk with me on this. Just imagine a holiday or last quarter of the year, which you get your October, November, December, that last quarter of the year. If that last quarter of the year has Microsoft with not only the sequel to Black Ops 2, which is pinnacle in the series, right? On their boxes of hardware. And then of course you have marketing rights for GTA, and you have all of these games coming out in the same year. Wow. I mean, you could logistically turn the entire brand around. And again, I'm not a marketing manager, but if I sound like a boo, by all means, tell me so. But I'm just saying that this is why you would spend that money. What are your thoughts on that before we get on out of here?
I think that would be worthwhile for them to take that risk and invest in that regard, because it could help, you know, elevate their numbers that they're seeing within the gaming space in general. Like I think it's worthwhile. And considering, money sitting in the couch cushions loses value by the day in comparison, kind of thing. So I I would say that would probably be one of the it probably be one, as a financial advisor would say, probably one of the most foolish investments. But I think in the grand scheme of things, from a gaming standpoint, it would probably be one of the most epic ones that they could possibly do, at least at the moment. And I think it would help them move more hardware. I think it would help, possibly change a little bit of the narrative of them getting out of the console space. Like, I'm sure there would be people that say, well, why did they get the marketing if they're just going to stop making consoles? And like, I think that would be drowned out with, oh, did you see it? It's going to be at the showcase. And oh, they got the breakdown for this. And they explain that, online is coming at a later date, or PC might not be for 2 years, and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I think the hype of GTA 6 in general would carry over within the Xbox brand if they did decide to take some of the billions that they're sitting on and put that towards the marketing. I can't guarantee it, but if I was a betting person and I had, the keys to the Xbox or Microsoft for at least 24 hours, I think I would write that check before I lose the keys to the building, just to see how it plays out. And I think it would play out in favor of moving more Series S hardware, just because it's going to be the lowest entry point. It may be a harder sell for the multiplayer guy that wants to play with his friends on GTA Online, but as far as for the single player guys that are still on, a PS4 or an Xbox One, I think it would be a lot more convincing at 300 in having GTA 6 possibly packaged in digitally with that console. I think that would be a bigger, draw at that point than what they might be looking at, waiting until either next generation to pick up GTA and the next generation console, or if they haven't already picked up a PS5 or a Series X at this point. I can't really see them, really well, unless they've been saving this entire time, buying or pulling the trigger at that point just as GTA comes out. But at a lower price point, I think that'll help convince a lot of those, because from what we've heard, I think like 50% of those PS accounts are still on PS4 or something to that extent. So
Yeah, it's over. It's over. I believe the last number that we saw, and this is going back a couple of months, maybe that's changed. I think it was somewhere 50, closer to 54% of
yeah,
PlayStation players that are logged into PSN are on older hardware. It's over 50%, so it's more than half the populace.
Yeah, so that $300 price point, I think, might be the not the straw that breaks the camel's back, but enough to convince a few people to hop on over. And yeah, I think it's a worthwhile investment. Although don't take investment advice from me, but yeah, I think it's a worthwhile investment for Xbox to do.
I mean, listen, again, this was a fun show. News is popping out. Obviously, there's a partner program happening at some point this month. Again, that's just standard fare. I have heard that. I have no more specifics other than it is happening. When I get further information, I'll be more than happy to share it with the community as I do. Um, there is, of course, still GDC happening, right? That's going to be is that this week or is that next week? I think it's the 17th, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's
So it's next
week.
week. It'll be next Monday, which of course we're expected to have some big news come out of that. What news? I don't know, but I'm excited because Xbox is going to be there, and they keep pushing this Xbox Anywhere thing. That kind of tells me that they have something to show. Is it quote unquote the handheld? I don't know. It would be pretty dope if they did, but we will know next week. I believe it starts next Monday. But look, that's going to do it for us here. We went a little bit longer than normal. Normally it's about 75 minutes, but we did have a couple of topics to get into. Big thank you to 341 people, almost 400 people watching on YouTube. There's no feed to Twitter, so if you missed out, you can catch us on the replay because Twitter is down still. I got a big red glowing mark here that says Twitter is no good. It is what it is. Hopefully they can get it figured out because it did go down as early as 6 a.m. this morning. It's been back up and forth. I don't know if they're going to get it together. And of course, that for anyone that's a big NFL fan, like I'm a Steeler fan. Wow, we've had some talk about. And I can't get my news. It's crazy. I got to actually go watch the TV like a normal person. It's crazy. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Let me just catch up on the last super chat. I believe we actually have two. Lieutenant Hulk. Hello, kind sir. Salute to you. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. And once again, thank you for the generosity. He drops a very generous $2 super chat. And he says, ABK was for the mobile expansion, which Google blocked. I mean, they're still making money hand over fist, and Google's going to get their rears handed to them by the government for sure for that kind of shenanigans. But yeah, ultimately, it really was for mobile. I mean, again, Call of Duty's big, but mobile is just massive. Thank you so much for being there, brother. Freddie Fox in the chat drops a very generous $5 super chat. Freddie goes on to say, I'm tired of media always asking more of Xbox. What about PlayStation? Their backwards compatible program sucks. I don't see Destin writing about Sony's backwards compatible program asking for better. I don't know, man. It's like I said, it's an opinion piece he did. I get the frustration because we have all been asking for these games, but the just the way he phrased it, I don't like he thinks it's a waste. I don't see that at all, especially when you look at it from the business part of perspective. Look long term what this is going to do for Xbox. And it's going to make them millions of dollars. Again, does that mean anything to me ultimately? No. I have stock, but it's not going to pay for the house. So I don't care. What it's going to do ultimately is more investment into Game Pass, more investment into first party, more investment into hardware. All these things are happening, and it could go even further thanks to ABK. And who knows? Maybe they'll own Take-Two one day, and GTA is now Xbox first party. You just never know. But that's going to do it for us here. Thank you again for checking out the show. Fuzzy Belvedere, let's sell the brand, brother. Not just your brand. We want to sell the Mrs. brand as well. So we'll start off with you. Of course, I say this all the time. Fuzzy Belvedere's channel is the best place for anything and everything in the racing genre. And I'd love you to see you get over there and sub him. We'd love to try and get him to 1K by the end of the year. But his wife also has a horror podcast called Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday evenings. Please go subscribe to her channel as well. Fuzzy, where can they do that? But more importantly, follow you both on social media.
As always, Boom, love doing this on Mondays where we get some breaking news and some news that happened over the weekend. Always love talking about the gaming industry and some of the stuff popping up and some of the stuff we're looking forward to. So this is always a great time to start the week off. And thanks to everybody in the chat. I know we don't always agree on everything, but it's always great to interact with you guys. Much respect as far as being able to have, calm conversations or give, our points back and forth and be able to interact and, be able to walk away, either learning more or, having our own understanding or a new understanding of some things that are happening within the industry. It's always a great thing. And for those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, just on social media, just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere. That includes for YouTube. I after I get my setup done, either later this month or next month, where I'll have my wheel and pedals back up. I've had to put away since the boys took over my old man cave. Getting that back, should be able to put more videos out, but do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere. You'll be able to find me, as well as some of my reviews, as well as some of my replays and stuff. And if you're into horror movies or horror games, check out my wife's podcast on Fridays, although we're not going to be there this Friday because we're going to be in Monster Mania in Cherry Hill, New Jersey this weekend. But the following weekend, we will be reviewing the movie Monkey. There is a new movie coming out that is a horror movie. There is already a popcorn bucket out there for it. So if you're into collecting those as well, definitely check it out. But I'll put the link in the chat for the podcast. Once again, it's usually Fridays at 6 p.m. Not this Friday, but next Friday. Once again, the movie that we're going to be talking about is going to be Monkey. So if you get a chance to see it, definitely hop in the chat it up with us, listen to our thoughts on it, and have a good time. But hey, this was an awesome show. Thank you so much, Boom. And everybody, make sure you clear your backlog as best you can, because the games are just stacking up as time goes on for this year. This year is pretty stacked, and next year is probably going to be even more stacked. And I think we're going to get GTA 6 this year. I was hoping originally thought it was going to be, 2026, but, GTA 6, 2026, but I don't know. It looks like it's going to be this year. So everything better move out of its way.
Get out of its way, indeed. It's going to be I think honestly, not only I think it hits $1 billion in the first 24 hours. Now again, this is whether it's $100. Hopefully, it's not that $100 thing has me really spooked, because folks, I'm gonna tell you this right now. I'm not falling for the banana and tailpipe. If that thing's $100, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it because not that it's not worth it. I'm not buying it because if we as gamers, as consumers, submit to that, you have the cat's out the bag. Everybody that's anybody is going to be making $100 games. Do not submit to that, because then the industry is destroyed. That happened with $70 games, and look where we are. And studios are closing. Mergers are happening. People are losing their jobs. It's bonkers. I'm not paying $100 for GTA. I don't, unless it's going to make me breakfast in bed and wake me up and shower me. I'm not buying it. Sorry. But that's going to do it for us. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for checking out today's show. Thank you again for all the super chats and the channel memberships. Mrs. Boom and I greatly appreciate the support. And of course, we're going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. We'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special.